Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave, and today we're going to be taking a look at Thomas Tuchel's new 3-5-2 at Chelsea in Tactics Explained. Remember to subscribe if you're new, smash that like button, of course, turn the notification bell on. But anyway, let's get this party started. Under Thomas Tuchel, Chelsea have gone from a team full of potential to potentially the best team in Europe. The Germans' use of a back three has made Chelsea extremely difficult to break down, so usually just a single goal is enough for the Blues to pick up all 3 points. In fact, Chelsea have actually kept more clean sheets in the Premier League under Tuchel than goals conceded. Combine this defensive strength with a number of game-changing forwards and you can see why Chelsea have become such a force to be reckoned with. The one area where you might expect Chelsea to be vulnerable is in the bigger games, when they're matched up with teams of similar quality, but that simply is not true. In the 10 meetings with the Premier League's Big Six, Tuchel has a 70% win rate and has lost just once. Thomas Tuchel's go-to system for his Chelsea side is the 3-4-3. With the ball, Chelsea look to dominate possession, recycling the ball between their 3 centre-backs, 2 midfielders and goalkeeper, whilst the wing-backs push up the pitch. The numbers involved in the build-up and individual quality of the players make Chelsea extremely press-resistant. This allows them to remain patient as they look to constantly switch the point of attack to create gaps in the opposition's shape that they can progress through. Once they reach the final third, Chelsea look to create by slipping forwards in behind with through balls or by switching the play out to a wing-back who can send in a cross. But in the big games, Tuchel tends to switch to a 3-5-2. In possession, Chelsea basically play the same way as they do in the 3-4-3. But there's a real emphasis on being defensively solid and playing on the counter-attack. This doesn't mean parking the bus like Mourinho. Instead, Tuchel adopts more of a gegenpress as Chelsea look to force turnovers through their structure and pressing traps. Without the ball, Chelsea's shape becomes a 5-3-2. One of the main reasons that the Blues are so hard to play against is because of how difficult it is to play through this setup. In their mid or low block, Chelsea use a zonal defensive setup. What this means is the pitch is broken into zones, with each defender responsible for a zone. If a player enters your zone, they become your priority to mark, but as they enter another zone, you hand them off. This defensive setup means the defending team are able to mark passing options while still retaining their structure, whereas the man-to-man defensive structure, holes and gaps can be created by pulling players out of position. Both setups have their strengths and weaknesses, but zonal setups, like Chelsea use, are restricted to the fact it needs to be extremely well drilled to operate and that it's also very narrow. The latter means it can be undone by quick switches of play. However, Chelsea's back 5 and wing backs help to combat this as there's naturally quite a lot of defensive width. A key feature of Tuchel's setup is their pressing. Chelsea's 5-3-2 often sees the ball-side midfielder step up to join the front 2 to press, becoming a 5-2-3. What generally happens though is Chelsea drop off into their 5-3-2, with fairly narrow strikers but a wide midfield 3. This central block of 5 players means teams generally play wide as Chelsea rock over to put pressure on the ball with the outside midfielder. This is such an effective tactic because the opposition are boxed in by the touchline, which restricts where the ball can go and usually means that a simple forward pass isn't on. Often the ball is recycled backwards as the opposition try again, but Chelsea strikers can quickly cut these lanes, which can see the player in possession try hopeful forward passes. Even if players can combine with one-touch play, Chelsea's outside centre-backs are very aggressive and will happily step out into the zone to engage, making this even less likely to succeed. The problem here is that if Chelsea can recover the ball through an interception, they've got a huge counter-attacking threat that is spearheaded by 2 central strikers. In fact, so far in the Premier League, only Wolves have had more shots from fast breaks than Tuchel's Chelsea, and with 3 of them coming against Liverpool when the Blues played half a game with 10 men. The top and bottom of Chelsea's defensive game in the 3-5-2 is that it makes the Blues extremely difficult to break down. Their midfielders are energetic, especially N'Golo Kante, and they usually use Kai Havertz in a false 9 role, who adds extra defensive coverage. This massively restricts the central space and forces the opposition to play on Tuchel's terms by playing wide where they can be boxed in by the touchline. Then when Chelsea have the ball, they adopt the main tactics that we've seen and pick up more Premier League wins than anyone else but Man City since Tuchel's first game. What's even more frustrating about playing Chelsea is that if you manage to shut them down out from open play, they still pose a massive threat from set pieces. With at least 3 centre-backs and Romelu Lukaku, Chelsea have a number of big targets that start every game. Then there's a number of players like Mason Mount, Reece James, and Marcus Alonso who possess excellent delivery from these scenarios. This combination has seen Chelsea score the second most goals from set pieces in the Premier League this season. And if they do manage to take the lead from a set piece, Chelsea can then focus even more on counter-attacking and introducing players like Christian Pulisic and Timo Werner to add more pace. In fact, in the 3-0 win over Spurs, 61% of Chelsea's XG came in the final 22 minutes when Werner was on the pitch, while Spurs didn't take a single shot. I can't think of a time when the 3-5-2 has become so dominant at the top level of modern football. Tuchel's tactics and shape itself protect one another, leaving very few easy ways to play against Chelsea. When they're set up in their 5-3-2, they tend to be a gap in the centre of Chelsea's shape that can be exploited by a forward dropping deep. The problem here is that Jorginho always follows this player rather than a gap forming between the Italian and Chelsea's outside central midfielders tuck in and create a 5-2-1-2. This arguably makes central progression even more difficult, but further opens up passes out wide where Chelsea can again use the touchline to press. This combination of their setup, personnel and the tactical genius of Tuchel makes Chelsea a nightmare in this system. So how do you play against Tuchel's 3-5-2? I think the key is that you have to be brave and play risky tactics, which plays into Tuchel's fast breaks. You can either play through the centre of Chelsea with one-touch play and get at their back five with numbers, or you can match them up and deploy a man-to-man scheme in a 3-4-1-2. Aston Villa had some joy using a similar shape against Chelsea by pressing aggressively, often around halfway, with the split strikers and by going man-to-man with their midfielders and wing-backs. This saw them catch Chelsea in possession several times in the opening 20 minutes, and probably should have scored a couple of goals. However, this was not only against the 3-4-3, but a number of Chelsea's second string such as Chalobah, Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi and Saul all starting. But without matching Chelsea's wing-backs, they've always got a distinct advantage given their style and system. With the quality of the team and the fact that there isn't a bad footballer in their squad, you can't rely on them making individual mistakes. And if you try and press them with the back four, they'll usually be an outball to a wing-back or a pass into defensive midfield. In the Champions League final, Manchester City tried to press Chelsea with the back four, and I would have argued that they had the best pressing structure in the world at that time, and it cost them the only goal in the game. Mendy in possession, he passes it to Christensen, who gives it to Azpilicueta. The Spaniard goes back to Mendy, who picks out Chilwell, bypassing 5 City players. Chilwell finds Mount, who turns and slips Havertz in behind to round Ederson and score. This isn't the first time that Chelsea have done this to City either, as Ziyech scored the winner in the FA Cup after a very similar switch to a wing-back, allowing Mount to get Timo Werner in behind City's defence. But simply matching up wing-backs isn't enough to stop Chelsea, which is testament to the work that Thomas Tuchel has done at the club. Not only do Chelsea have specialist wing-backs that completely understand the role, but if you do adopt a 3-4-1-2 with split strikers and go man-to-man with their 3-5-2, you still don't have enough players to completely stop Chelsea building out. Around their own box, the goalkeeper gives them a 4v2 advantage. Higher up the pitch, you've still got a 3-on-2. If you leave a centre-back, they've got the technical ability to either go direct to Lukaku or play for second balls, or they can look forward running in behind. In last season's Champions League semi-final against Real Madrid, the Spaniards gave Rudiger time on the ball, who lofted a pass over the top for Pulisic to put Chelsea into the lead. Alternatively, if you go for a 3-4-3 or even a 3-1-4-2, they'll outnumber you in midfield and there'll be a pass on into that area. Tuchel's big game 3-5-2 is one of the most difficult systems to break down. The 5-3-2 block is very compact and the midfield three offers great coverage in front of the defence, and the back five provides defensive width whilst the two strikers offer constant threat on the counter-attack. That alone is enough to concern other big teams, but when you add in Chelsea's proficiency in possession, their specialist wing-backs and some of the best players in the world like N'Golo Kante and Romelu Lukaku, Chelsea become terrifying. And that's just their obvious threats. Their strength in depth is unbelievable, which allows them to tackle a problem with the best tool for the job. Want another playmaker? Throw in Hakim Ziyech or Kai Havertz. Want more pace in behind? And you've got Timo Werner and Christian Pulisic. The fact that Saul is Chelsea's 5th choice midfielder speaks volumes and highlights how well Mateo Kovacic has improved. With 7 clean sheets and just 1 loss in 10 meetings with the Premier League's Big Six, I'd argue that Thomas Tuchel has built the best big game system in the world. But anyway guys, what do you think? Have you been impressed by Tuchel's big game systems? Let me know in the comments below. And which team do you think will win the Premier League? I've been Statman Dave. We'll see you later. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel.